Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Hebrew's weekly reading of the first three verses of each week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is parashat SHEMOT, the first parasha, the first Torah reading in the book of Exodus. This week's parasha is Exodus chapter 1, verse 1 until verse 1 of chapter 6. Let's begin. We will be using what I call the expanded transliteration. This transliteration is better suited for people with little to no background in Hebrew. So it assumes you would be reading it like you would expect to read a word in English. The more abbreviated versions of transliterations are better for once you've gotten a hold on how Hebrew is usually pronounced. So let's begin. Feel free to follow in the Hebrew if you already know Hebrew, but I will be first reading it slowly, repeating each word twice in this expanded transliteration. Wa'el, wa'el. If you notice the accent symbol over the E, that lets you know that you accent this syllable of the word. Wa'el, shemoth, shemoth. Bene, Bene, Yisrael, Yisrael, Habbaim, Habbaim, Misraima, Misraima, Eth, Eth, Yaakov, Yaakov. Make sure you pronounce this as three distinct syllables, not two syllables, three syllables. Many people mistakenly pronounce this name, Jacob, as Yaakov, because in English it's Jacob, two syllables, but in Hebrew it is not just the name Jacob with the Y replacing the J. Rather, it has an entirely additional syllable that is absent from the typical English pronunciation. Ya-a-kov. Three syllables. Ya-a-kov. Repeat it for yourself. Ya-a-kov. All right? The bolded vowel lets you know that this is the sound of the letter ayin, which should be pronounced distinctly from the letter aleph. You can find many YouTube videos to help you with that. So let's go back to the beginning of this line. Eth Yaakov Ish U V'T. I apologize. When there's a T underlined, it lets you know that it is a th, not a ta. U V'Th. U V'Th. Of course, in the normative popularized pronunciation of Hebrew as used in modern Hebrew, there is no distinction made between a letter tav when it appears with no dot inside, as opposed to a tav when it appears with a dot inside. But in classical biblical Hebrew pronunciation, when there is no dot inside the letter tav, represented here with the letter T, when there's no dot inside of it, then it makes a TH sound, and we indicate that with an underline. When there is a dot inside of it in biblical Hebrew, it is pronounced more like the regular T sound in English. Okay. And as you can see, we use the extra letter H added to help you know which part of a word is accented and to avoid mispronouncing certain vowels. So it's good to minimize any unnecessary H's. And also, by representing the TH with simply an underline, it enables a person to read this transliteration even if they want to read it like in modern normative pronunciation, as opposed to proper classical Hebrew pronunciation. Oath palm, again, oath palm. U ve th, u ve th, ba u, ba u. Now let's read it one more time, a little more quickly. وَإِلَّا شَمَثْ بَنَي يِسْرَائِيل هَبَّئِيم مِصْرَيْمَ إِذْ يَعْقُبْ إِيش وَثَبَّأُ. Now in the Hebrew, وَإِلَّا شَمَثْ بَنَي يِسْرَائِيل هَبَّئِيم مِصْرَيْمَ إِذْ يَعْقُبْ إِيش وَثَبَّأُ. Now we'll read it a little bit more of a natural pace in the Hebrew. Feel free, if you need to continue following along in the transliteration and play back as many times as necessary to feel comfortable with your reading of the pasuk of the verse. وَإِلَّا, one more time. وَإِلَّا شَمَثْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل هَبَّئِيم مِصْرَيْمَ إِذْ يَعْقُبْ إِيش وَثَبَّأُ. One more time. A little bit more of a faster pace. وإلا شمث بني إسرائيل هبائم مصريم إذ يعقب يشبو باء. Pasuk haba. Next verse. Repeat. Pasuk haba. Pasuk means verse. Haba means the coming, as in the next. Pasuk haba is chapter 1, verse 2. Follow in the transliteration or in the Hebrew if you're already comfortable. Reuven, Reuven, Shim'on, Shim'on, Lewi, Lewi, Yehudah, Yehudah. One more time, a little bit more of a faster pace. Reuven, Shim'on, Lewi, Yehudah. In the Hebrew, Reuven, Shim'on, Lewi, Yehudah. One more time, pronouncing each word twice. Reuven, Reuven. You may have noticed I'm not saying Re'u, but I'm saying Re'u. Very subtle difference, but this is because the letter Aleph is a guttural letter, and we have a rule in classical Hebrew pronunciation as preserved by the Jews of Yemen and a few other Middle Eastern Jewish communities that although there is a default pronunciation of the vowel schwa when it is pronounced as a short vowel, yet it uses a different pronunciation, different from its default standard pronunciation, if the very next letter is a guttural letter. And Aleph is a guttural letter. When the next letter is a guttural letter, then the schwa, when it is sounded, will take on the same vowel as the upcoming guttural letter. In this case, it's u, because this vowel right here is shuruk, makes an u sound. The only difference will be that the schwa's pronunciation of u will be much more abrupt, much shorter, unaccented. So not ra'u, but ru'u, ru'u. Reuven, Shim'on, Shim'on, Lewi, Lewi, Yehudah, Yehudah. One more time. Reuven, Shim'on, Lewi, Yehudah. Reuven, Shim'on, Lewi, Yehudah. Reuven, Shim'on, Lewi, Yehudah. Pasuk haba. Next verse. Pasuk haba. Perek Aleph, Pasuk Gimel. Gimel, Gimel. Yisachar, Yisachar. Zebulun, Zebulun. Right? In more advanced transliterations, we will replace the EW sound with an OO sound. But it's important that you know that when you see an OO sound in a transliteration, it's not an as is commonly the case in English. Right? So in order to avoid that with beginning level readers, we let you know that this should be an OO sound by writing an EW underlined to let you know it is one phoneme, one sound, OO. Zebulun, Uvin, Yamin, Uvin, Yamin. Again, the accented symbols let you know which part of the word to accent. Let's do it again. Issachar, Zebulun, Uvin, Yamin. In the Hebrew, Issachar, Issachar. You'll notice I'm holding down the S sound, extending the sound of the S because there's a dagesh in it. That is called gemination. Issachar, Zvulun, Zvulun, Uvin Yamin, Uvin Yamin. A little more quickly. Issachar, Zvulun, Uvin Yamin, Issachar, Zvulun, Uvin Yamin. And that concludes the first three verses of the first parashat, the first Torah reading in the book of Exodus, SHEMOT. Keywords. These words are not decided by frequency, but simply from my own experience and deciding from my own experience which of these words in the first three verses are conducive to advancing your Hebrew as quickly as possible, based on frequency of Hebrew in general, as opposed to frequency of words in this parasha in particular. Shemoth is the name of the book of Exodus in Hebrew and the name of the first Torah reading of the book of Exodus. Shemoth literally means names. The plural form of Shem is Shemoth. Shem means name. Shemoth, names. B'nai, B'nai. B'nai means sons of. The suffix lets you know that it is a plural of. Ben means son, plus the suffix, which means plural of. So b'nai, sons, plural, of. B'nai. Number 3. Yisrael, Yisrael, Yisrael. Yisrael is composed of 2 different root words. Of course, it is the name of Israel, but its meaning, Yisra, means he struggles or fights, and it could also mean rules, but contextually from the book of Genesis, it's associated, at least originally, with regard to struggling or fighting. And El often refers to God, but it doesn't mean absolute divinity. So it can certainly refer to the true God, but it doesn't inherently mean God. That is a common misconception. El refers to a power of legendary renown and might, a legendary power of might. So these are like, whether they be men of old or men of legend or deities and ancient myths, but they are individuals or characters of renowned might, men of legend. Yeah, you could say men of epics. You may even say like titans, right? So the same word titan in English doesn't normally connote true divinity, true or absolute deity, but it does connote characters of legendary might, right? And so it may refer to the true God or other forces. So Yisrael literally means one who struggles, El, and it could be he struggles with legendary might. It could mean he struggles with God, as in he's struggling inwardly. He has an inner struggle with God, yet he overcomes, according to the story that we find in the book of Genesis. Or if he struggles with God, meaning God is there with him in his struggle, right? When the word with being inferred between the 2 roots. It could also mean he struggles and fights against the false gods of the world, the false powers, whether in the world, not only idols, but also the false powers in his own mind and in society and embedded in cultures. So these are not only idols that people bow down to, but also erroneous concepts and beliefs, irrational beliefs that hold humanity back and perpetuate injustice in the world. Israel, he who struggles, he who struggles against false concepts, erroneous principles, and overcomes because he struggles with the legendary might of the true God. Blessed is his name. Number 4, Misrayima. Misrayima. Misrayima means Egypt word. It's normally going to be translated in these verses as toward Egypt, but the two words toward Egypt in Hebrew is actually one word, Misrayima. So the word Egypt in Hebrew is Misrayim. Misrayim literally means double narrows and probably refers to upper and lower Egypt. It becomes not just Misrayim, but Misrayima by virtue of the suffix. By adding the suffix, we insinuate toward, not insinuate, it means toward. So it's like adding a word, W-A-R-D, to the end of a word in English, so that you can say like westward, which means toward the west, or homeward, like homeward bound, meaning going toward home. So Egypt word, Misrayima. You can do this with many words in Hebrew, although they don't usually translate it with the word, W-A-R-D, because that's simply not the way we usually speak in English. But you could do it with many words. Eretz means land. Arsa means landward, like going toward the land. All right, milah haba'a, next word, milah haba'a. Uvetha, uvetha. U means and, vit means house, means his. So if you have a noun in Hebrew and it is a masculine noun, if you want to be his, whatever the noun is, then you just add to the end of the masculine noun. So for example, if yad, hand is yad. If you want to say his hand, you would say yado. You just add the to the end, yado. So uvetho, and his house. House, vit in Hebrew, of course, it means a house, but it can also be used figuratively to refer to one's family or even a dynasty, like the house of David, or the house of Israel and the house of Judah, as in the dynasties of Israel and the dynasty of Judah. That concludes our reading of the first 3 verses of this week's Torah portion, parashat Shemot, the Torah portion of Shemot, the first Torah portion of the book of Exodus. If you enjoyed this lesson and you have any questions or comments, please follow me on Patreon/Authentic Torah. You can leave questions or comments there, subscribe and follow. And until next time, Shabbat Shalom. Have a blessed and meaningful Shabbat.